Is Albedo good? Is he worth the trouble of wishing for and then later building him up to be of use to your team at your current world level? Well, I asked myself these very same questions and went after the answers. Howdy guys, what's going on? Welcome to the video Genshin Impact. My name is Ventus SG, and in this video, I'll be reviewing and breaking down the 5-star Geo user Albedo and showing you what he looks like at higher levels, higher talent levels, and with good artifacts and weapons. Alright, so the first thing that I wanted to know about this character is, can he really be a main DPS? The answer? I don't actually think so. Now, don't get me wrong. He puts out incredible amounts of damage, and his energy recharge is literally insane. But when compared to like a Razor or a Diluc, I'm just not sure if main DPS could be something you could use him for. The best way that I can describe him after continuous play with him over the last few days while building up his talents and gear is something called a support DPS. Now, what I mean by that is that he can deal damage, a crap ton of it, but not as often as a character like Razor. But what he can do is deal extra burst of really good damage with his elemental skill and his elemental burst. And if you give him the right consumable items for a time, he will be an absolute powerhouse. Alright, so the way they created him is unique. His elemental skill is a geo construct that he summons onto the map called a Solar Isotoma. Upon summoning, which you can determine where this thing goes, it deals AoE geo damage, and this damage is scaled off of Albedo's defense score. So, the higher that you can make his defense, the more damage that this thing is going to do, which is why I said with the right consumable items, he can be insane. Now, more on those consumable items a little bit later in the video. What's cool about the Isotoma is a couple of things. First, the cooldown time of the skill is ridiculous. It's something like 4 seconds, so you can keep calling this thing down in between basic attacks of your weapon. While the Isotoma is out and enemies are inside the AoE field, whenever they take damage, they will take extra geo damage. Now, it's not like an ongoing tick, so they won't take damage just by being in the field. They have to be hit by someone or something else, and when they are, they get an extra burst of geo damage. The Isotoma has a skill duration of 30 seconds, and this goes back to what I said earlier about him being a support DPS, because after you set down the Isotoma, other characters that do deal the serious damage get more damage. This damage is called Transient Blossom damage. They call it Transient Blossom because the geo damage tick appears with a flash that looks like a slightly transparent flower. They can only be generated once every 2 seconds. In co-op mode, I'm not certain whether or not this rules apply for one or all members on the field at the same time. These blossoms are neat because they actually give Albedo's basic attack a very nice boost, which almost makes his normal attacks as effective as Razor, and that's a huge almost. If he could continually create these blossoms while in his AoE, I might say that he could probably be a main DPS. Now, I've actually just been using him as main DPS these last couple of days, and when he's equipped with the Festering Desire and Dragon Spine, with the Festering Desire's abilities unlocked for the event, he deals the damage of a main DPS. Another thing that's cool about the Solar Isotoma is that if you stand on it, it raises up like a platform. This is so that you can go up and hop down for a nice plunge attack. It's actually really funny in co-op to see other players use these platforms to attack enemies. Only one of these Isotomas can exist at one time, but that's okay because with a 4-second cooldown, if the fight should happen to move out of the Isotoma's field, you can always just make another one. Albedo's elemental burst, the Tectonic Tide, is an eruption of geo that deals crazy damage to targets in front of Albedo in like a cone. So to make it useful, you literally have to be directly in front of who you're attacking. And in my experience, the closer you are to the target, the better, though the range is slightly less than medium when trying to catch targets away from you. It also will reach airborne targets as long as they are in front of Albedo. Now, here's what's cool about this. If you have a Solar Isotoma summoned onto the field when you activate the Tectonic Tide, whatever you hit within the Isotoma field will take extra Transient Blossom damage. They call these Fatal Blossoms in this form, and they get 7 ticks of extra geo damage. So it's like the target gets this huge burst of geo damage, and then right after that they get 7 smaller bursts that can sometimes almost equal or half again the damage of the initial burst of the Tectonic Tide. And ready for this one? One more really cool thing about this is the energy recharge rate. At times in co-op runs, I'm literally doing Tectonic Tide back to back, waiting on the cooldown for like the entire match, which is insane because it happens like that for me with some of my other characters, like once or twice in a domain run, but not constantly like it is for Albedo. I mean, it just like keeps happening. This is largely in part to the fact that I do run the Festering Desire on Albedo, which has a stat for energy recharge. And his first constellation, Flower of Eden, states that transient blossoms generated by solar isotoma regenerate 1.2 energy for Albedo. Now, the rest of his constellations are kind of meh to me. The first one and the second one seem to be the best. The second one, opening of the Phanerozoic, I'm pretty sure I'm not saying that right at all. It gives Albedo insane damage modifiers under the right conditions. When Albedo gets a Transient Blossom, he gets something called Fatal Reckoning for 30 seconds. This increases Albedo's damage by 30% of his defense score, and it can stack up to 4 times. And what's more, if you use the Tectonic Tide while you are stacked up with Fatal Reckoning, you deal enhanced damage with the Tectonic Tide. The other constellations are okay, nothing that's like wow, except for like the 6th one, that whenever party members have a shield around them, they get increased damage by 17%. Albedo also has a passive talent called Calcite Might, I think it's called, and basically when you hit an enemy that is below 50% health with a Transient Blossom, they take 25% more damage. Another passive talent he has, it's called, and I'm not going to say this right at all, Homuncular Nature. It raises elemental mastery of nearby party members for 125 for 10 seconds after Albedo uses Tectonic Pride, his elemental burst, giving more weight to the title that I gave him of DPS support. Now, as far as gear goes, there are only a few combinations that really make any sense. In a later video, I will dive into different variations and see what hits harder and what doesn't, what helps teammates more often than not, like in a co-op setting. But so far, I've been running 2-piece of Noblesse and 2-piece Archaic Petra. The Noblesse bonus enhances elemental burst damage, while the Archaic Petra 2-piece bonus gives a slight increase to geo damage. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, and before I say this, I am sure that there is a benefit. I know that someone's going to disagree with this, but before I had any Archaic Petra artifacts, which is what I was doing for the last couple of days, trying to get 5-star Archaic Petra, because right now he's got all 5-star pieces on him. Before I got the Archaic Petra set, I already had some Noblesse set that were 5-star, and I upgraded those. And honestly, once I did a switch to use 2-piece Noblesse and 2-piece Archaic Petra, I didn't see very much different in his damage. Now, I'm going to conduct some serious testing over the next couple of days to see if that's actually accurate. I'm sure it's not, but be sure to check back to this channel when I upload the follow-up on Albedo in a video where I go more in depth about his weapon choices and artifact choices. Now, consumable items you may want to keep on you for Albedo are things that raise his defense, his attack, and also the unmoving essential oil that you can craft using frogs and coralapis. Using these items boosted Albedo's damage to levels I have never seen before on any character. Like, I'm literally hitting like casual 20Ks. It's ridiculous. Alright, so that's it for me right now, man. If you stayed this long, I'd appreciate it if you hit the like button and sub to the channel with all notifications on. Thank you so much for watching. You have a great rest of your day. Peace out.